London, Mayfair district. It's a Tuesday morning when William Thompson, 48 years old, CEO of a 400 million financial empire, walks towards his office after a meeting when he sees something that paralyzes him. A street kid of about 16 years old, dirty and poorly dressed, wearing around his neck a gold necklace with a butterfly pendant, the exact same piece of jewelry he had given to his daughter Charlotte for her 13th birthday, before she mysteriously disappeared 3 years ago. The necklace the police had never been able to find. What William will discover by following that boy will change his life forever and reveal a shocking truth that will bring him face to face with the greatest regret of his existence. William Thompson adjusted his Savile Row tie while walking with determined steps down Bond Street, in the heart of London's Mayfair district. At 48, he had built from nothing a financial empire worth over £400 million, becoming one of the most powerful men in British finance. That Tuesday morning, he was coming from a crucial meeting with Japanese investors for his company's expansion into Asia. The November sun filtered between the Georgian facades and modern glass buildings, creating surreal contrasts with historic London. William loved walking through the central streets after important meetings. It was his way of organizing his thoughts. However, in the last 3 years, these walks had also become a way of trying to escape the ghosts that tormented him. Charlotte, his daughter Charlotte, who had vanished into thin air at 13 during a normal school day. A Tuesday morning like this one, when he had taken for granted that the girl had gone normally to Westminster School. But Charlotte had never arrived at class, and despite exhaustive police investigations, hired private detectives, offered rewards, she had never been found. Charlotte's disappearance had destroyed not only William's life, but also his marriage to Victoria. In the months that followed, they had blamed each other, consumed by guilt and despair. Victoria couldn't forgive William for always being so absorbed in work, while he couldn't get over the fact that Victoria had argued with Charlotte the evening before the disappearance. Now, William lived alone in his £20 million penthouse in Kensington, surrounded by luxury but empty inside. Economic success had lost all meaning since the day Charlotte disappeared. He continued working with the same ruthlessness as always, but he had become an automaton. While walking absorbed in his thoughts, something caught his attention at the corner between Bond Street and Oxford Street. A boy sitting on the ground against a wall, with a worn backpack and dirty, torn clothes. It wasn't an unusual scene for London, but what made William stop dead was a detail that froze his blood in his veins. Around the boy's neck, over a gray holey t-shirt, gleamed a gold necklace with a butterfly pendant. Not just any butterfly, but a butterfly with wings encrusted with small diamonds and an emerald in the center of the body. The exact same necklace that William had commissioned custom-made at Tiffany & Co. for Charlotte's 13th birthday. A unique piece, personally designed by the brand's artistic director. William felt the world spinning around him. His legs became like lead while he stared incredulously at that necklace he knew perfectly. It was he himself who had designed it, choosing every detail together with Charlotte, who loved butterflies because they reminded her of life's transformation. The necklace had cost £45,000, but for William, it was priceless. The boy seemed to be 16 or 17 years old, was thin, and had a face marked by scratches and bruises. His dark hair was messy and dirty. His clothes seemed not to have been changed for weeks. But what struck William most were his eyes. Despite his young age, they had a depth and sadness that betrayed a life of suffering. William approached slowly, his heart beating wildly. He didn't know how to approach the situation. If this boy had Charlotte's necklace, anything could have happened. Maybe he had found it. Maybe someone had given it to him. Or maybe William didn't even want to think about the darker alternatives. The boy looked up when he noticed William's shadow. His eyes immediately showed fear and distrust, the typical reaction of those who live on the street and have learned not to trust well-dressed adults. William stopped a meter away, trying to appear as unthreatening as possible. He had to be very careful, because if he frightened the boy, he risked losing him forever, and with him the only trace of Charlotte he had found in 3 years. The boy looked at William with suspicion, instinctively clutching the backpack to his chest. He was used to those kinds of looks from respectable people, usually followed by insults, threats to call the police, or at best a few coins thrown with contempt. But the man in suit and tie in front of him had a different expression, almost vulnerable. William slowly knelt down to get to the boy's level, a gesture that surprised both of them. When would a millionaire businessman literally lower himself to the level of a homeless person? The boy revealed his name was Oliver, but remained suspicious when William began asking questions about the necklace. Oliver instinctively brought a hand to his neck, covering the jewelry with a protective gesture. It was the only valuable thing he possessed, the only tangible memory of a past he had lost. When William explained who he was and that this necklace belonged to his missing daughter, Oliver's face completely changed expression. Suspicion gave way to total shock, then to something William couldn't decipher. Fear? Sadness? Guilt? Oliver whispered the name Charlotte, and at that moment, William understood that the boy not only knew that name, but the way he had pronounced it revealed a deep, intimate connection. When William asked where Charlotte was and if she was well, Oliver looked around nervously, as if seeking an escape route. The boy's eyes filled with tears he desperately tried to hold back. He was just a boy, despite everything he had been through, and the weight of what he knew was becoming too heavy to carry alone. He said he couldn't talk there. It was too complicated. William felt desperation rising within him. After 3 years of total darkness, he had finally found someone who knew Charlotte. But the boy was closing up again. He had to find a way to earn his trust. Oliver looked William in the eyes for a long moment, as if making the most important decision of his life. Then, slowly, he nodded. He said that if William really wanted to know about Charlotte, he had to follow him. But he had to promise that whatever he told him, he wouldn't call the police. William didn't hesitate a second to make that promise. Oliver stood up and began walking, guiding William through a maze of alleys and streets that the millionaire had never seen before, despite living in London for 20 years. Oliver led William to a part of the city that seemed to belong to a parallel world, where elegant Georgian buildings gave way to abandoned structures and forgotten corners. They arrived at an old, disused building on the outskirts of Camden, with bricked-up windows and walls covered in graffiti. The interior of the building had been transformed into a sort of improvised shelter. Mattresses on the floor, lit candles, few personal objects scattered here and there. William immediately understood that Oliver wasn't the only one living there. There were signs of at least 3 or 4 different people. Oliver began telling the truth. Charlotte wasn't his blood sister, but she was the most important person in his life. It was she who had saved him when he was 14 and living alone on the street. William felt his heart racing when he asked where Charlotte was now, but Oliver sadly shook his head. He didn't know. Charlotte had disappeared 6 months ago, vanished as often happens to those who live on the streets. William's world swayed again. His daughter had survived the initial disappearance, had lived on the street for over 2 years, and now she had disappeared again. Oliver went to a corner of the shelter and picked up a damaged cardboard box. He opened it carefully and took out some objects: photos, letters, small mementos. William immediately recognized some of the objects as belonging to Charlotte. Oliver explained that Charlotte had told him everything. That day, 3 years ago, she hadn't gone to school because she had decided to run away from home. She had told Oliver that her parents always argued, that she felt trapped in a family that didn't even notice she existed. Oliver's words hit William like slaps. It was true. He and Victoria had gone through a difficult period precisely at that time. Work absorbed him completely. Money and success had become his only priorities. But he thought Charlotte was too young to be really influenced by their problems. Oliver continued explaining that Charlotte had said that the evening before, something had happened that made her feel definitively invisible. Her mother had scolded her harshly, and her father hadn't even come home for dinner. William remembered that evening. An important deal had gone wrong, and he had stayed at the office until 2 in the morning. He hadn't even called home. The next day, he had left on a business trip, and when he returned, Charlotte had already disappeared. Oliver told how he had found Charlotte hiding in an underground car park 5 days after she had run away. She was scared, hungry, and afraid to return home because she thought her parents were angry with her. Oliver, who had lived on the street since he was 12 after his parents' death, knew how to survive and had started taking care of Charlotte. William felt tears burning his eyes. His daughter had lived on the street for 2 years, and he had known nothing about it. All the detectives, all the searches, all the money spent, and Charlotte had always been there, in London, just a few miles from his home. Oliver pulled out a handwritten letter from the box. It was a letter from Charlotte addressed to William, never sent.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
With trembling hands, he took it and read words that destroyed him. Charlotte explained why she had left, how she felt like a ghost in her own home, how he always worked and was always tired and angry when he came back. William burst into tears. 3 years of held-back pain finally finding an outlet. Charlotte had been right about everything. He had lost himself in work and money, had stopped being a present father long before she disappeared. Oliver explained that in the following years, they had lived in places like this, together with other street children. Charlotte was good at finding accommodation and knew how to talk to people. In 2 years, they had managed to create a small street family with Emma, a 15-year-old girl, and James, who was 17. Oliver told that Charlotte was the glue of the group. She made them feel normal, like a real family. She read books found in bins and told them in the evenings. She wanted them to continue studying, even though they no longer went to school. When William asked what had happened 6 months ago, Oliver turned to him with deep fear in his eyes. He explained that someone had discovered where they lived, bad men who did terrible things to street children. Charlotte had realized they were being followed, and one night had woken everyone up screaming that they had to escape immediately. William felt an icy shiver. Oliver told that they had separated to confuse them. Charlotte had taken the south direction towards Southwark. Emma and James had gone north. He had stayed to check they had left. It was the last time he saw Charlotte. Oliver had seen Emma and James again after a week. They too were looking for Charlotte, but no one knew where she was. It was as if she had vanished into nothing again. William jumped up, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He said they had to find her, search together. He had the means, the contacts, the money. Oliver had the knowledge of the streets. Together, they could do it. Oliver looked at him with a mixture of hope and skepticism, asking if he really wanted to help, even if it meant entering a world he didn't know, getting his hands dirty with things his comfortable life had never shown him. William replied that Charlotte was his daughter, and he would do anything for her. And Oliver had given her what he hadn't been able to give her. He had protected her, loved her like a big brother. Oliver slowly nodded. They had to start with Emma and James. If anyone knew something about Charlotte, it was them, but it wouldn't be easy to find them. They had learned to hide very well. William pulled out his phone. He had contacts throughout the city, private detectives, informants, people from social services. With their help and Oliver's knowledge of the streets, they would find her. For the first time since they had met, Oliver smiled. It was a smile full of pain, but also hope. He said that Charlotte had always believed that one day her father would come looking for her, that when he really needed her, he would find her. The following days were the most intense of William's life. He left the company in the hands of his deputy and dedicated himself completely to searching for Charlotte. with Oliver as guide in the London underworld he had never imagined existed. Together they visited improvised shelters, abandoned stations, disused buildings, talking to dozens of street children who lived on the margins of society. William discovered a parallel universe made of young people who had given up on the normal world or been abandoned by it, creating their own survival rules. Oliver proved valuable not only for his knowledge of places, but also for the trust other children placed in him. Many of them remembered Charlotte with affection and respect. They called her the teacher because she taught them to read and write in the dark corners of the city. On the fourth day of searching, in a camp on the southern outskirts of London, they finally found Emma. She was a red-haired girl with green eyes, thin and defensive, who initially didn't want to talk to William. Only when Oliver explained who he was did she open up. Emma revealed that Charlotte was in serious trouble. Those who had been following them had taken her. They called them the collectors. They took street children and made them disappear. No one knew exactly what they did with them, but it was said they sold them. William felt his blood freeze in his veins. Emma said she had heard rumors about a warehouse near the port of Liverpool, but it could just be a rumor because these men moved constantly. She added that James had gone to look for Charlotte alone 2 weeks before and hadn't returned. William immediately understood the gravity of the situation. It was no longer a simple search, but a real rescue from a criminal organization. He made a decision that would change everything. He took Oliver and Emma to a safe place, then called some special contacts. William had built his financial empire also thanks to contacts who operated in the gray areas of legality. It was time to use those favors accumulated over the years. In the following hours, he set in motion a search machine that would have made the Secret Services envious. Ex-military, unscrupulous private detectives, informants from the criminal world, all received the same order: find Charlotte Thompson and bring her home alive. The turning point came after 48 hours of frantic searching. An informant confirmed Charlotte's presence in an abandoned warehouse near the port of Liverpool, controlled by an organization that trafficked human beings. But the situation was desperate. The group was preparing to transfer the prisoners within 24 hours to an unknown destination. William didn't hesitate a second. He called the best specialist in recovery operations he knew, a former colonel of special forces, who now worked as a private contractor. He offered him £5 million for a rescue operation to be carried out that same night. That night, William Thompson, Millionaire CEO who had never fired a shot in his life, found himself sitting in the back of a black van heading towards the port of Liverpool, wearing a bulletproof vest and his heart beating like a pneumatic hammer. He was about to see his daughter again after 3 years. If she was still alive? The operation at Liverpool Port was quick and precise. The former colonel's team had studied the warehouse for hours, identifying guards and access points. When the assault was launched, everything ended in less than 10 minutes. The traffickers were neutralized, and 20 children between 13 and 18 years old were freed from what was essentially a prison. William followed Oliver through the dark warehouse, illuminating with a flashlight the faces of the terrified children. Many were malnourished. All were scared and confused. Then, in a corner of the warehouse, Oliver suddenly stopped, whispering Charlotte's name. William raised the flashlight and saw his daughter for the first time in 3 years. She had grown, obviously, but she had also changed in ways that went beyond simple age. Her eyes, once full of innocence and curiosity, now showed a depth and strength that only someone who has suffered greatly can possess. Charlotte looked first at Oliver, then raised her eyes to William. For a moment that seemed eternal. Father and daughter stared at each other in silence. Then Charlotte whispered, "Daddy?" And William fell to his knees beside her, tears flowing freely down his face. Charlotte threw herself into his arms, and William felt that the emptiness he had carried inside for 3 years finally began to fill. But when he hugged her, he realized how much she had changed. She was stronger physically, but also more fragile emotionally. In the weeks that followed, William discovered that having Charlotte back home was only the beginning of a much more complex journey. His daughter had lived through traumas that required time and professional care to be processed, but she had also developed a strength and maturity that amazed him every day. Charlotte wanted Oliver to come live with them, simply explaining that he was her brother, that he had given up his freedom to protect her when she was just a frightened child. Now, he was part of their family. William didn't hesitate a second. Oliver was not only welcomed home, but William also took care of having him complete his studies, and, when the boy expressed interest in social work, financed his university education. A year later, William had transformed a considerable part of his wealth into a foundation dedicated to helping street children. Charlotte, despite her young age, became the foundation's spokesperson, telling her story to raise public awareness about a problem that London preferred to ignore. During a press conference, Charlotte said she had learned that sometimes you have to lose yourself completely to find who you really are, and that family is not only the one you're born into, but also the one you choose, and that chooses you. William watched his daughter from the back of the room, proud of the brave woman she was becoming. Beside him was Oliver, now definitively part of the Thompson family, and Emma, whom they had found and helped rebuild her life. That evening, during family dinner, Charlotte brought out the necklace with the butterfly, the one that had led Oliver to William. She explained that this necklace had saved her twice. The first time when Oliver saw it and decided to take care of her because he understood she came from a family that loved her. The second time when William recognized it and decided not to give up. William took the necklace in his hands, observing that it was a gift for a little girl who loved butterflies because they represented transformation, without knowing how prophetic it was. Charlotte smiled, explaining that butterflies have to go through the darkness of the cocoon to become what they are destined to be. They too had to go through darkness to find themselves again. William looked around the table. Charlotte, Oliver, Emma, and even James, whom they had managed to find, and understood that his daughter was right. He had lost one family and found a bigger, stronger one, united by bonds that went beyond blood. The necklace with the butterfly had returned to its place, around Charlotte's neck. But now it represented something new, not only a father's love for his daughter, but proof that true love can overcome any distance, any time, any darkness, and that sometimes, to find what you've lost, you have to be willing to completely change who you think you are. If this story moved you, leave a like, share in the comments. Do you believe family love can overcome any obstacle? Have you ever had to fight to regain something precious you had lost? Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that show how sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Remember, true family isn't just the one you're born into, but also the one you choose, and that chooses you. Love knows no distances or time when it's authentic.